No!
Here's Josh Hennig.
The Eagles won, and it was not how many people expected. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on Game Night. 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Glad to have you guys on board the show today. Chris Franklin, who covers the Eagles for NJ.com, he will join us coming up in less than 20 minutes. We will talk with him more about this Eagles team is putting themselves in a very interesting conversation. Now, I'm not going to be like some people out there who are going to say this team is going to the Super Bowl. I'm not that guy. I've never been that guy. But I will admit where I'm right, and I'll admit where I'm wrong today here on Game Night on 97.3. You guys can tell me what you guys think about the Eagles. How are you feeling about them after their win on prime time last night? You can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle, and you can text in at 609-403-0973. Let's start with this. And I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying this to be upfront with everybody. I think it is time for all the Jalen Hurts haters to relax and admit that they took the wrong path, that they bought a load of lies, that they believed in people and listened to people who led them to a wrong decision. You cannot, after that game, tell me that you don't think Jalen Hurts no longer has an NFL arm. You can't go out there and say Jalen Hurts can make the throws that an NFL quarterback makes. If you are still believing and thinking those things, then you and I are not watching the same game of football. Now, look, there's a very strong possibility that that is the case because, let's be frank, there's a lot of people out there who watched Jalen Hurts in college and wanted to tell me that Jalen Hurts had no throwing arm, that he couldn't make NFL throws, his arm wasn't strong enough. There was one play last night where Jalen Hurts tried to throw the ball and hit Quez Watkins in stride. It was an NFL throw. It was called back and erased because of one of the Eagles' offensive line's 6 penalties. And I'll get to that in just a bit as well here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. When you think about what Jalen Hurts did last night, he made every throw you would want. And realistically, the only difference between him and the other quarterback who shined last night was that Jalen Hurts is 6'1", and Josh Allen is what, 6'5"? That's really the only difference. There's no throws that were made by Hurts and Allen that the other can't make. The only physical difference is one guy is taller and one guy has one of the 3 best arms in the NFL today, Josh Allen. Just because Jalen Hurts doesn't have elite arm talent doesn't make him a bum. It doesn't mean that he sucks. It doesn't mean he can't play or win in the NFL. Now, I got to give credit. There was someone who texted in the show earlier who said, hey, Josh, look, I was wrong. I was one of those Hurts haters. He's starting to win me over. Here's the exact comment who commented. Jeff in the HT. Jeff in the HT, he texted the Sports Bash earlier, and he deserves a lot of credit. Because first, Jeff in the HT put his name on the text. And second of all, he owned up to it. He said, I'm still not sold on Hurts as a passer, and I've always said that as a passer, he is starting to win me over, though. I'm here, Josh. And that's a great job by Jeff in the HT. And I wish more people would have that type of realization. Because when Sam and Avalon texted in 2 weeks ago to the show, he asked the question, is Jalen Hurts a winning quarterback? And I said yes. Because I saw him do it in college. I know he could do it in the NFL. He has the mentality and the leadership. The question was he going to evolve enough as a quarterback, as a passer, to get the job done? And I think you saw last night in prime time, with the cameras the brightest, with the lights shining right down on him, that he is going to be able to do this long term. Now, he's not going to throw for 80% of his passes every game. If you think that's going to happen, then, well, listen, I got some swamp land to sell you in Florida, okay, buddy? But the reality is that I think that he is very fair that he can go out there and throw for 65% of his passes or something along those lines. I saw him do it in college. I've seen him do it in the NFL. I think the larger question to me is less about Jalen Hurts today and his ability, because I think the Jalen Hurts haters have been, shown up and, maybe I'm hoping, I say maybe, I'm hoping that the people who hated on Hurts before last night, whoever led you down the road to think that, whoever you believed in or listened to that you thought that that was the case, I hope now moving forward that you stop listening to those people. Because neither me or Mike Gill ever said those things about Jalen Hurts. There was nobody on this station who was a host who hated on Hurts as much as some of the people who texted in. And I'm not saying he's a perfect quarterback, but he's a winning quarterback. And as I will repeat what Jalen Hurts said last night, who cares if it's aesthetically pleasing? Winning is winning, right? That's all that matters at the end of the day, isn't it? Isn't the whole point is to win a championship? So who cares? Who cares how he does it? Now, the bigger problem last night that where I was wrong, Jonathan Gannon in the defense was amazing last night. I had a lot of questions after the first game, and I think all those questions were answered very, very at a high level. You saw last night a team that went out there and just took it to a Vikings offense that has one of the best receivers in the NFL, a quarterback who has thrown for over 4,000 passing yards in 6 out of 7 seasons of Kirk Cousins, a talented running back. The team overall is supposed to be this high-powered offense, and they only scored 7 last night. Darius Slay probably had one of the greatest games of his career. I think Darius Slay has proven that he's the best Eagles cornerback they've had since Asante Samuel Sr. was in an Eagles uniform. And at the end of the game, you're looking around, you're like, the Vikings only scored 7, and they were in the red zone multiple times, and they choked. And it was because of the defense. I told you guys last night, the key to me was if the Eagles defense got to Kirk Cousins, he was going to have turnovers, because at the end of the day, Kirk Cousins is never more than an above average quarterback. It's who he is. And you took advantage of him. You pressed him. You forced him into making bad decisions. So while I'm happy to see Hurts play well, I'm even happier the Eagles defense went out there, blitzed, got in Kirk Cousins' face, did a great job in coverage on Justin Jefferson. I was so impressed with the Eagles defense. Now, obviously the negative from last night was the penalties. I don't know why they keep committing these penalties. I don't know what the issue is with this offensive line. I don't know if it's because they didn't have enough practice time in the preseason or in the training camp. I don't know what it was, but those 6 penalties, 2 of them negated great plays by Jalen Hurts, by the way. They got to clean it up. This is supposed to be one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Jason Kelce's a future Hall of Famer. Lane Johnson's one of the best tackles this organization has seen in the last 30 years. He's easily in the top 5 tackles in this organization in the last 20, 30 years. I think Dickerson is a stud for a long time. I think Mailata is going to be a multi-time Pro Bowl selection in his career. I think this team has got everything they need in the offensive line. And then they go out and have all of those penalties, man down the field, false start. At some point, it was just getting nauseating, and they kept committing all those penalties. Got to clean that up. All right, check in on what you guys have to say here on the text board. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You also can DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of CLC. Don't forget, coming up in about 10 minutes from now, Chris Franklin from NJ.com, Eagles beat writer, was there in the stadium last night, in the building. We'll get his reaction the day after to the Eagles win. What does it mean, the Eagles at 2-0? Over on the text board, J and AC says, I think the Eagles with the NFC and probably the whole league on notice, they might not be a perfect team, but when they start clicking and then when they continue to mature and learn, they are a dangerous, scary team. That's from J and AC. The thing with the Eagles, J and AC, is that they definitely put the league on notice, and I think you made a great point there. Might not be perfect. That's the perfect line right there, because J and AC, this team is not perfect. Numerous penalties on the offensive line last night. I feel like that the offense didn't always have the best rhythm. I think Shane Steichen did a good job calling the game, but I felt that there was not the cleanest ebb and flow in the world to the game. Because remember, they didn't do anything really in the second half. So they definitely still have flaws, but they put the league on notice that they are a very good team. They are not to be trifled with, and they are to be game planned against. Because guess what now is going to happen? Teams are going to go watch these first two games. 38 points in the first game. Well, 31 by the offense, I should say. But 31 by the offense, 24 in this game. You're talking about a team now that has scored a total of 55 points over 2 games. Not bad. Not bad at all. So I think you're right, Jay. They definitely put the league on notice because they're not perfect. But when they are on, they are dangerous. Cole from LBI asks, I don't know if Mike Gill ever answered my question from earlier, but are you concerned or starting to wonder why Jordan Davis is on the field more? I know the draft is the future, but I think a first-round pick usually have an immediate impact. From Cole from LBI. Cole, I think there's 2 problems with Jordan Davis. I think one is the fact that I think the Eagles underestimated how much talent they have on the D-line overall. Fletcher Cox had an amazing game last night. Javon Hargrave, I think, is still in the prime of his career. Marlon Tuipulotu has showed you that he is probably better than people thought he was going to be. Milton Williams is a stud as well. So I think the problem is that who do you take off the field to put Jordan Davis on? Because unless it's like a first and goal situation for the defense, you're not having 3 pure D tackles on the field. There are scenarios where you can kick Fletcher or Milton Williams to one of the DN positions to maybe go heavier on the pass rush front. But who are you taking off the field to put Jordan Davis on? I think that's where Tracy Rocker, the D-line coach, and Jonathan Gannon, the D coordinator, are going to have some tough conversations going LBI about how do you get this guy more than 21, 22 snaps in a game. Mike and Marmora says, Josh Hurts' throwing motion is slow, but much more concise now. He can't Mahomes it. Nobody can. Great job by the young man last night. It's from Mike and Marmora. You know, Mike, it's interesting you mentioned the slow motion because mechanically, Hurts' mechanics, they're not ideal. Okay. The way he lines up for the throwing motion, you're right. It doesn't get you to a quick release. But I can say the same thing about a lot of quarterbacks in the league who have been successful. Matthew Stafford doesn't have the quickest release in the world, but he has great arm talent, right? I would say that Dak Prescott doesn't have the quickest release in the world, but he is pretty accurate with the ball when he does let it go, aside from the one game when he got injured. I would say that the guys who have the quickest releases, the fastest motions with their throwing are guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, Tom Brady. Peyton Manning's release was incredible. You know, it's a slow release too, Russell Wilson. You know, maybe it is something about guys who are in that height. Maybe it has something to do with that body structure. When you're that tall and that thick and that strong, maybe you just don't have the, I don't even know what the word is. Is it pliability? Is that the word? Maybe you're not as flexible in the shoulder that's spinning it around quick enough. Maybe that's the issue, Mike and Marmora. Guys like Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Jalen Hurts, they're all kind of the same body type, and they all kind of wind the ball the same way in that way where they set, extend, turn, and throw. Whereas other quarterbacks, the turn and the throw is almost one motion. Maybe it's part of their body type. All right, we'll get more of your messages a little bit later this hour. Keep them coming in. I love hearing from you guys. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You also can DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. We'll talk more Eagles next with Eagles beat writer Chris Franklin from NJ.com here on Game Night with me, Josh Hennig, hanging out with you on 97.3 ESPN.
You haven't downloaded the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app? Well, go get it now to follow all the Philly sports teams at 97.3ESPN.com. Powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. Check out Chicky and Pete's all-new happy hour every weekday starting at 4 p.m. Enjoy select craft beers, seltzers, and wines for $5, plus feature cocktails for $7 on our special happy hour food menu. We call it the Bar Board, with world-famous crab fries, tasty pretzel nuggets, and get ready, Curds Aroni, with crispy bacon and Dijon cheese sauce. Chicky and Pete's all-new happy hour every weekday starting at 4 p.m. Chickies and Pete's. Hi, it's Pete from Chicken Pete's. College football is back. Come join us for XL College Football Saturdays every Saturday starting at 11 a.m. We have you covered. Ice cold domestic draft personal pitchers for just $5. Plus a wing special for you and your crew like no other. 40 classic or boneless Chicken and Pete's award-winning wings for just $60. Choose from buffalo, barbecue, dry rub, or the new kid on the wing block, spicy Thai peanut wings. XL College Football Saturdays, only from Chickies and Pete's.
When you bundle your renters and auto insurance with Progressive, you could save money, but it doesn't cover any terrible memories living rent-free in your head.
You remember that time you were singing in the shower, and then you heard a knock on the wall, and then you realized that your bathroom shared a wall with your neighbor's bedroom, and all you could do was stand there silently, thinking about all the other things they may have heard in the 4 years you've lived there? Yeah, good times.
Sorry, we can't save you from that memory, but we could save you money bundling your renters and auto insurance with Progressive. Coverage from Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and third-party insurers. Renters insurance and bundle discount not available in all states or situations.
Hi, Tom Bodette with a shout-out to Uncle Rick. You know him. He shows up at the family reunion in a muscle shirt without muscles, stealing noses off the kids' faces. He brings a nugget of wisdom, too, like staying at Motel 6. They have clean, comfortable rooms where he can kick off his flip-flops and great low rates, which is handy since he's always saving up for a speedboat or something. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you, Rick.
O'Reilly. Improve fuel mileage with Chevron Techron Fuel System Cleaner at O'Reilly Auto Parts. A clean fuel system can increase your vehicle's performance and gas mileage. Get Chevron Techron Fuel System Cleaner starting at $9.99 and earn 10 times O Rewards points on your purchase. Get the most out of every gallon. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts or shop O'ReillyAuto.com today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Straight Talk Wireless knows there are plenty of reasons you might need a new phone. But switching to a better wireless provider doesn't have to be one of them. Keep your own phone and save when you switch to any Straight Talk Wireless plan, like our $45 Silver Unlimited plan with unlimited high-speed data and 5 gigs of hotspot, plus nationwide 5G on America's best networks. Keep your own phone. Switch to a better wireless plan. Straight Talk Wireless. No contract, no compromise. Requires a compatible unlocked phone and KYOP kit. 5G capable device required. Actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary. See latest terms and conditions at straighttalk.com.
Research shows listeners prefer a personalized experience. So to help you remember, Liberty Mutual customizes your home insurance. We personalize this ad for Amber, who really misses boy bands from the 90s.
Hey girl, I'm the cute one, here to tell you how Liberty Mutual customizes your home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
I'm the heartthrob. The only thing I love more than you is saving. And I'm the other boy in the band everyone forgot about.
Just happy to be here.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
When a nasty cold keeps you up all night, Vicks NyQuil Severe gives you powerful relief from your worst cold and flu symptoms, which changes a night that sounds like this into a night that sounds more like this. Ah, that's better. NyQuil Severe. The nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, sore throat, stuffy head, aching, fever, best sleep with a cold medicine. Use as directed.
Been car shopping lately? What a hassle. Way overpriced vehicles, limited inventories, endless waits for new cars. But that's not the way it is at Bennett Chevrolet. Because Bennett's got the new and used vehicles you want in stock, ready to roll. And get this, Bennett Chevy is selling new Chevys right at MSRP, not 1 cent more. Look around, you'll see. Selling at MSRP is very rare. And to keep your payments low, we've got financing from just 1.9%. And we're still paying a record minimum $7,000 for any trade, and I mean any trade, towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. That's right, we're paying a minimum $7,000 for the worst trade out there. Imagine how much you'll get for a good trade. And at Bennett, you'll love the way you're treated, because our non-commissioned sales team is paid based on your overall satisfaction, not how much you spend. Come see how easy car buying can be when you find new roads at Bennett Chevy. Egg Harbor Township and BennettChevy.com. With GMF financing approved credit, excludes Corvette and prior sales.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Football talk here on 97.3 ESPN being brought to you by my friends over at Jenkins & Sons. Jenkins Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning keeps us comfortable here in the 97.3 studio with our own personal air system here in the studio, and they can do the same for you. Home or business, Jenkins does it all. Plumbing, air conditioning, heating, cooling, drain cleaning services. They do it all. Call Jenkins at 609-641-6262 or visit them online at jenkinsandsons.com. We'll get back to you guys' thoughts and comments. Text board is blowing up. I'll get to you guys in just a bit. 609-403-0973 is the text board, or you can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. But right now, we're going to talk to somebody who was in the building last night covering the Eagles for NJ.com. He is Chris Franklin, joining us back on the show here on 97.3 ESPN. Chris, welcome back. How you doing the day after?
Oh, man, I'm running on adrenaline right now and a lot of coffee and everything else, caffeine, whatever. If you have more direct line to IV, please send it this way. It was a long night, but it was fun to cover it, I'll tell you that.
I will send you my recommendations for caffeine additives after we talk, okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
I don't want to say certain things on the air because people don't advertise, and well, you know how that goes.
Yeah, it's a good move. That's a veteran move by you. See, that's a very, very veteran move.
Yeah, like when you do the podcast, you and Les Bowen, you guys don't want to talk about a bunch of businesses that aren't sponsoring the pod, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be loyal to the ones that do it, and you work around those certain ways. So,
yeah, exactly.
It's
the simple things. Speaking of simple, I'm going to start with what I got wrong, Chris. And I mentioned this earlier in the show. I want to bring up to you here. I had a lot of questions after that first game. I was not sure about this Eagles defense. According to Pro Football Focus, they were the worst tackling team week 1 in the NFL. And last night, they were amazing. Jonathan Gannon, his play calling, Darius Slay was incredible. Fletcher Cox had his best game probably in 2 years. TJ Edwards was a stud last night. It just felt like everything clicked on that defense. And I got to admit, I was wrong. I was concerned about this defense coming in to this Vikings matchup, and they showed out last night.
Yeah, I was with you. I thought the game was going to be a lot closer. I thought Justin Jefferson was going to get his yards. I thought Thielen might have had a big night too. But who would have thought one of their best players, wide receiver wise, was going to be Irv Smith and Jalen Reagor. I mean, and Reagor was more of as far as rushing acumen. So you look at the job that defense did to turn things around. I thought they changed some little things as well too. They played more man, which I thought played well more into Darius Slay's hands. And they had on the backside, they have James Bradbury locking up. And how about Avonte Maddox? I mean, a lot of people talking about Slay today. And obviously so they should, because 2 interceptions while covering the best wide receiver in the league. Well, the second best. I don't want to disrespect Devontae Adams, but you look at the job he did. Avonte Maddox played well in the slot when they tried to get Jefferson on him blocked up, and he had a couple big pass breakups. So I thought the tackling was going to get a little bit better as they got more acclimated to the playing. But that pass rush, I still think they still have some ways to go. But I thought it was encouraging to see Josh Sweat do better, see Fletcher Cox, as you mentioned, and Javon Hargrave show up a little bit as well too. And yeah, this defense actually shows some life.
How much was it also them showing pride about the fact that these guys, how much look, we know players say they don't hear things, but we know they do hear things. And how much of it was, guys like the veterans, Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham, turning to the younger players like Sweat and Reddick and Edwards and White and Darius Slice stepping up his first year as a captain. All these guys together saying, no, we are not going to be dragged under the bus for another week.
Wait, they don't listen to us? What? No, not at all. Yeah, right. It's the worst kept secret ever because you'll go buy some of that locker. Sorry, we wrote about. Oh, okay, yeah. But yeah, there's some. I think they took it a little personal. I mean, look at what happened last week. Last week against the Lions, and all these guys. I mean, these guys have had, especially when it comes to Cox, Brandon Graham. These guys have had storied careers, and they're among some of the biggest names when it comes to looking at Eagles history defensively, and to see that effort that they put out against the Lions, it was rough to see. So I think it was good. I think a little bit was changing the scheme a little bit when it comes to Jonathan Gannon. I think he knew a little bit because I think he had the most to prove. I mean, a lot of people talk about the offense. I think he had the most to prove out of everybody in this game coming in here. So I think it was a little bit of that, but you need that veteran core, and they came up big for him as well.
Now, this is 2 games for the defense. Week 1, they didn't look so good. Week 2, they look amazing. So is it fair to say that they're probably somewhere between last night's game and week 1 versus Detroit moving forward?
See, when I look at it, I still think they're more towards Detroit as of right now because it's going to go as the way that Gannon wants to attack quarterbacks. And I mean, upcoming this week, Carson, is he going to decide he wants to be as aggressive as he was beforehand and play more man against those Commanders wide receivers? I think it's going to go as Gannon goes. If he lets these guys play more man, if he decides to bring more pressure, if he decides to utilize Hassan Reddick in different spots, maybe not have him line up all the time, dropping the coverage as much as he does, and shows different fronts and disguise more coverages, I think this defense can be more like last night. But if he continues to go back and play, say, that cover 6, very loose cover 6, or he plays like the quarters defense where he had the 4 defensive backs deep and let everybody run underneath and get first downs like on 3rd and 12 to get 18 yards, you start to see that. I think we're going to see more Detroit. So the onus is going to be on Jonathan Gannon and his aggressiveness.
Eagles beat writer for NJ.com, Chris Franklin, joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN at C Franklin News on Twitter, and of course the podcast. Him and Les Bowen co-host the No Huddle Show. Chris, let's flip over to the offense. This is what I did get right, to give myself a little credit because nobody else will. Look, I always thought, what's that?
Give the pat on the back.
Ed, to me, I look at this game like this. Ed Donatel historically has had issues with mobile quarterbacks. Like for 20 years, the guy has a record that running games and mobile quarterbacks he does have issues with. I thought Hurts had a good game last night. I didn't think he'd have a historic game last night, Chris. What were some of your takeaways from what Jalen Hurts did last night?
Well, first off, I think the biggest question that everybody had about Hurts was his ability to throw from the pocket. And listen, they basically, the offensive line gave him 3 seconds to throw, and he took advantage of it. I like the way how he went through his progressions. Now, does it help that they played that almost, it's like that Dontel snuck in and looked at Jonathan Gannon's playbook? Perhaps when they play those wide zone and let him run underneath. But I think also when he made his decisions as well too. There are times that if he had some situations like he did last year, Hurts probably would have just stepped up and run, but he stood in there and he threw an accurate ball because there's time he put the ball in positions where his receivers can make plays, and I thought that was key. That was the main key I took away from that. I also like how they still use his legs. Would I like to see him use a little bit less RPO? Yeah, because we've seen the timing seems to be a little bit off still with those ineligible men downfield penalties. We start to see those numbers starting to creep up again. But I think overall, when you look at his decision making, when you look at his accuracy, the 83.9%, who would have thought that when you're looking at when it's below 60? So I gotta say I'm impressed with what he's doing, and he's continuing to develop, and is helping this offense out a lot.
You tweeted out that Pro Football Focus rated Hurts with the highest passing grade among NFL quarterbacks. And then Hurts also the second highest overall offensive grade, only behind Josh Allen. And, I mentioned earlier, Chris, for me, my issue with the people who talk about Jalen Hurts running is, well, Josh Allen does it and nobody says anything. But Jalen Hurts does it and people complain. And to me, the only difference between Hurts and Allen is one guy is 6'5", 6'6", one guy is barely 6'1", one guy has one of the three best throwing arms in the league in Josh Allen, and one guy just doesn't have one of the three best throwing arms. Like, to me, I don't understand the difference between why Allen's allowed to run around and Hurts is not.
Well, I think also it comes with I also think where they're taken too. I mean, Allen was taking the first round draft pick. Hurts is a second round guy that came behind Wentz. And I think that you saw the jury was still out with Hurts as well too. And Allen's taking his team deep into a playoff run too. But when you look at their numbers, when you compare Hurts' beginning of his career to Allen's, when you compare it to Kyler Murray, they're very comparable. If not, Hurts is actually leading in a couple of those categories. So I don't get why people are still feeling like, oh, well, I need to see 16 games. Okay, if 16 games pass, well, I need to see him in the playoffs. If he takes him to the playoffs and get this run, well, I need to see this. There's only so many roadblocks you can keep coming up. And now, listen, I know it's still early. It's only 2 games into the season, and things can change, and the book can be written on Hurts, and he has to adjust. But I think after this amount of time, when you compare his numbers to everybody else, you have to give him a chance, and you look and go, hey, you know what? Maybe this guy is actually legit. I think maybe this guy really is at least a top 15 and could turn into a top 10, maybe 7 guy.
You mentioned in passing earlier, I want to get back to it. The big problem from last night's game was the offensive line, which is supposed to be the strength of this team. This is arguably on paper, if not the best, one of the best offensive lines in all the NFL. 6 penalties, men down the field, guys false starting. I mean, it was just this is now 2 straight weeks where the offensive line just doesn't look like they're, I don't know. Are they not ready for the season, Chris? Do they need a few weeks to get back to cohesion? Do they have too much time down from training camp to the start of the season? Like, what gives?
Well, a little bit is I thought Mailata, when he missed some time with a concussion, and then they only used the joint practices and didn't play until that first game. I thought that may have affected it. Landon Dickerson's been nicked up here and there, but he's been all right. But he's played, but that throws off the timing. So you got your left side of your line still working that. You still have your right guard, Isaiah Marlowe, still getting used to that. And Lane, to me, the only person I think has basically been solid so far has been Lane Johnson. I think he's been the only one that I think, like, hey, you know what? I think if we put both tape of both games together, I thought he's been the most solid person. Even Jason Kelsey's he's still working out some things, but he did get some combo blocks downfield. So it's going to take some time. I mean, the chemistry, they have the veteran know-how. They know the assignments. I think it's just going to be more of that repetition of getting things done. But not all, when it comes to those, the one thing I will give them is those down the field penalties. Well, 2 of them, because I don't know what St. Paul was doing, thinking he was running a route. I don't know that. Can't do that. But the other ones, they're like the decision should have been made quicker by Hurts, or also when it comes to is either something wrong with either Hurts or the route that was run that threw everything off. But yeah, they have to tighten those up quickly, and if not, you're just gonna keep killing drives and taking points off the board.
I wonder this, and maybe this is a bad question, so you could tell me. Is there maybe some issue with maybe Sayamalu is still not fully used to being on the right side? I mean, he started so many games at left guard, and then before that in college he was playing center. Is it just maybe he's not used to playing on that side?
Well, that goes a little bit into it. I think sometimes, when you're telling your muscle memory, okay, I got to put my left foot back, I'm going to put my right foot near the center, and then I'm going to go into my pass sets or run blocks and fire off, that plays a little bit. But I think now it's getting to the point where it's just repetition and him getting used to it. And then I still think some of it's just physical ability early on. I mean, you look at Detroit, they still had I think they had a pretty decent interior, but you thought the Vikings, especially the interior, they should have had I thought they had the matchup against them personally. I think they could have ran inside more and they could have had success that way too. So it's going to be it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of time him trying to get used to the position, but I think physically, and this is all speculative, I don't know that. I wonder if he's still thinking about that foot, because it's one of the things when you have an injury and you're just like, okay, I feel confident in it. You tell yourself you feel confident in it. You know, you're like, I'm confident in it. But then in the back of your mind is like, well, maybe I'm not that footstep and fire off. So I wonder if that's going on. Once again, that's purely speculative, but I think that might be playing a role into it too.
Couple more things for Chris Franklin from NJ.com, Eagles beat writer, joining us here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN the day after the Eagles win. So, Chris, it's a short week. We got to flip the script forward. So my first thought moving forward is, what happened last night? Do you think that the Eagles are going to be game planned against this coming Sunday? Because you know in the NFL, it's a week-to-week proposition, right? So what happened last night? If you put on your coach's hat, you were in the room with the Eagles opponents, that you're saying this is something that we can maybe isolate or take away from.
Okay, if I'm going against the Eagles offense, I'm making sure I'm playing press coverage, and I'm going to make Devonta Smith and AJ Brown on the outside try to beat me off the line. I'm blitzing. It's going to be like a Remember Titans. You blitz all night. I'm going to make Hurts, and it's almost like a mush rush. You blitz to contain him. You force him to stay in the pocket, but you play man to man, and you hope to get some hands up there and deflect the pass. I think that's going to be key on that one. If I'm the Washington offense, I'm moving McLaurin all around. They want to try to play the same thing where you're motioning. You want to motion them across and have Darius Slay follow them around. Okay, I'm going to run a bunch of rub routes and pick routes and try to make things real muddy in the middle and try to dink. You may have to dink and dunk your way down. And then also, I'm attacking Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. That's one thing I thought that teams haven't done enough of. I mean, he's still learning this system. He's only been here for a couple weeks. Why not use a slot receiver or running back, what have you, and just try to take it downfield, down the seam, and test them, keep on testing them, or something to confuse those safeties. So that's the other one. In special teams, I'm going to keep running up the middle of the punt on punts, the Eagles punts, because the teams are getting really close. Detroit got close to blocking one week one. They almost got close to blocking a punt against the Vikings. Got close to blocking a punt, and they did block a field goal. So I'm bringing pressure. I think the main thing is pressure. You pressure Jalen Hurts, you pressure the kickers for the Eagles, and then you also basically put some pressure on Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
I don't want them to gain another yard. You blitz all night. If they cross the line of scrimmage, I'll take every one of you out.
Yes.
It's my favorite football movie all time.
That is great. Oh, it is great. You make sure they remember the Commanders. Oh, that just sounds weird, but yeah.
That's the moment that everything falls apart, when you say we're the Commanders.
Yep.
But on a serious note, look, Wentz has not played bad this year. Okay, Terry McLaurin and Dotson look dangerous. Ron Rivera, he's an experienced coach. He's still over there. They still got some studs on that defense. Washington is not a pushover.
No, I saw some lines open at like 5.5. It's a road division game. The Eagles are coming off a high where they just had probably their best. They played their best football against Minnesota in a way like that, and the Commanders are coming off an embarrassing loss. I mean, I look at this together, and I think this is. I know it's still really early. It's 2 weeks in, but I look at this as possibly the Commanders going, you know what? We don't want to lose ground to, can't be saying this, lose ground to the Giants. You don't want to let the Eagles go 3-0. We still want to be competing in this division. And I think they play tough. I mean, you always got to trust the mind of Ron Rivera. He's been around the block a little bit. He's gone against mobile quarterbacks. So I think this game is going to be a lot closer than I also thought the Minnesota game would be close, but I thought this game would be a lot closer too, to be in this division. So it's going to be no cakewalk, and the Eagles have to go in there with that mindset.
Hey, Chris, look, I thought the Eagles were going to win 30-27. Tells you what I do before the game.
I had Elliott hitting a late field goal because they're going to be down in the fourth quarter.
Same. I had Elliott. I had Elliott hitting a game-winning field goal. That was my theory.
Oh, it's a good thing that happened. He probably would have been blocked. So yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, thank goodness for Sipos chasing the guy down. I mean, who had that in their predictor column? Oh, by the way, the kick's getting blocked and Sipos chases the guy down.
On Patrick Peterson of all people, the guy who used to be a punt returner,
right?
We used to be one of the fastest. We never had that. It must be something in the water in Australia. I don't know what it is, but hey, it worked out for the Eagles.
By the way, who was it that Patrick Peterson drove out of bounds in the second half, and he turned to Patrick Peterson and like gave him the wink and the nod that, hey, good tackle, man. Who was that?
I forget. Oh, my mind's drawing a blank. But
you know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah, I can picture the play.
Yeah,
I'm drawing a blank. Yeah. But Patrick Peters is going to show up on Come On Man when it comes to ESPN next week. He has to get knocked out by the punter on that. Should have scored there.
So true. You can follow him on Twitter at C Franklin News. Chris Franklin covers the Eagles for NJ.com. And make sure you give a like and subscribe to the No Huddle Show podcast with him and Les Bowen. Chris, appreciate you jumping on. Always enjoy the conversation, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thanks, Josh.
Josh Hennig here hanging out with you on Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City. Back to the text board next, 609-403-0973. And you can DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle.
This is the radio home for Philadelphia Eagles football. The Eagles continue the 2022 season this Sunday in Washington against the Commanders.
He is going deep for Quez Watkins, who has it, goes in for the touchdown. The strike to Quez Watkins.
Pre-game coverage starts at noon with Merrill Reese and Mike Quick calling all the action starting at 1 p.m. This is where the Philadelphia Eagles play. 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's official Eagle station.
Listen up, South Jersey football fans. Are you interested in solar? Want a free roof? EMT Solar and Roofing has you covered. Visit ESPNsolar.com to see if your home qualifies for a free roof with solar installation. Don't wait, act now. Start saving thousands and virtually extinguish your electric bill. ESPNsolar.com is the place to go for your roofing or solar needs. No commitments, no hidden fees. Go to ESPNsolar.com to see if you qualify.
Progressive presents Don't Do It Yourself.
Okay, simple enough. Just got to get in there with my screwdriver. Do you mind handing me my screwdriver?
Are you trying to say screwdriver?
Well, I mean, you're saying it weird, but yeah, sure.
Look, maybe we should bundle our home and auto with Progressive. We could save big and pay someone to install this for us so you don't have to pretend you can.
I know my way around a screwdriver. Oh, yeah. This is going to take a Philippe's head for sure.
Save when bundling home and auto with Progressive and use the money to, not do it yourself. Coverage from Progressive Casualty Insurance Company affiliates and third-party insurers. Bundle discount not available in all states or situations.
You wash your hands and brush your teeth, but what about your nose? How do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage pulls saline in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, flushing out allergens, mucus, dirt, and germs, and it's why nose cleaning is the next evolution in daily personal hygiene. People try Navage for lots of reasons: sinusitis, allergies, snoring, things that make it hard to breathe through your nose. But over time, they also find that cleaning their nose makes them feel better, a lot better. Nearly 3 million Navage users have written more than 100,000 reviews, averaging 4.7 stars, saying things like, best product I've ever used, and amazing, I love my Navage. That's because Navage helps you breathe better, sleep deeper, and snore less. But the biggest payoff is improved health. Here's the key point. Navage is good personal hygiene, and it's going to help you stay healthier. At Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, Target, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
Rezzle is the world's #1 virtual reality sports trainer. Whatever your team, your sport, your ability, improve your game and train like a pro. Rezzle. Reactions, performance, accuracy, stamina, resilience. Train at home in the Rezzle Sports and Fitness VR training arena. Search Rezzle, Rezzil. Harder, stronger, smarter. The world's #1 virtual reality sports trainer. Available now on MetaQuest.
I did a site visit and the space is absolutely incredible.
Este's Reiki Clinic is opening another studio across town.
But there's a lot to wrap up.
But staffing an entire office requires more than just deep breathing.
Receptionist and at least 4 new practitioners.
Indeed can help them hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed, you do. We instantly connect you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
How do you make the most of your land? Everyone has their way. The Nelsons depend on their John Deere Gator XUV 835R to get
from point A to point B with decoys and the dogs.
As much as we got going on, it's all about efficiency.
And if you ask the Mosers what they use their Gator XUV 590M for, they tell you.
The most fun we have on the Gator is just ripping around the property.
There are millions of ways to make the most of your land. Learn how to make the most of yours at Deere.com. Nothing runs like a Deere.
This view was worth a hike.
Right? And it's a good way to stay on top of my health.
Yes, I'm Cologuard, a prescription colon cancer screening option for people 45 plus at average risk. Have you screened for colon cancer?
Not yet.
Don't wait. It's more treatable when caught in early stages.
Tell me more.
Cologuard is non-invasive and it's used at home. It detects altered DNA in your stool to find 92% of colon cancers.
92%?
Yep, even those in early stages.
This was seen in a clinical study with patients 50 and older. Any positive result should be followed by a diagnostic colonoscopy. False positive and negative results may occur. Cologuard is not a replacement for colonoscopy in high-risk patients. Do not use if you have had adenomas, have inflammatory bowel disease and certain hereditary syndromes, or a personal or family history of colon cancer.
Most insured patients pay $0. Ask your provider or an online prescriber if Cologuard is right for you, or visit Cologuard.com.
I'm in.
Hey, listener. Welcome to Limu's Karaoke Lounge, where Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need, and the music never stops. Hit it.
There's an emu with a full-time job. His partner's Doug, but Limu's the heartthrob. Grubs and worms, that's what Limu eats. Gotta fuel up to save you money and hit the streets.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
When you hear the word concussion, most people think about the risks facing professional athletes, but parents of student athletes are just as concerned. The good news is that the Concussion Center at Cape Regional is here to help. Our 7 nationally certified concussion specialists use the latest diagnostic tools, and our customized rehabilitation programs help student athletes get back in the game. To learn more or to schedule an evaluation, call 609-463-CAPE or visit us at caperegional.com. Cape Regional Health System for a healthier life.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Game Night being brought to you by friends over at FanDuel Sportsbook inside Bally's, Atlantic City. Get on all the football action this season. Bet, watch, and win all year long and enjoy your favorite games from all over the world with 10 betting kiosks, 5 betting windows, 13 big screen TVs, and plenty of comfortable seating. That's why I love FanDuel, and you should too. So head over to Atlantic City at Bally's and get on all the action with FanDuel Sportsbook right off the boardwalk inside Bally's, Atlantic City. FanDuel wants every bettor's experience to be fun and enjoyable. Visit FanDuel.com/playwell to learn more about responsible gaming tools available to you. Must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right. As promised, I want to get to a bunch of messages before we get out of here. A ton of messages to get to the day after an Eagles game. Jim in the EHC says, hello, Josh. Hello, Jim. I have Trubisky for a quarterback with the Steelers. A quarterback with talent can have a resurgence for greatness. I hope Hurts has his opportunity. Hurts has an excellent game, and hopefully this is the foundation for greater things. It's from Jim in EHT. It's funny you mentioned Trubisky because Trubisky is a very unique situation. Because Trubisky had 3 things going against him when he was drafted. Number one, he was overdrafted. So no matter what, people are going to judge him aggressively based on the fact he was drafted ahead of Patrick Mahomes. Number 2, he wasn't ready to start in the NFL. I think Trubisky came from an offense in college that really prohibited him from being fully ready for the NFL. And 3, he was playing for a Bears organization that I don't really know if they really fully understood Ryan Pace and company, how to build a team. So you're right. Quarterbacks with talent can have resurgences. And this is the first time in Hurts' life since high school that he has had the same offensive playbook and same coordinator in his ear for 2 consecutive years. It was a turnover every year at Alabama. Then he went to Oklahoma. Then he goes to Doug Peterson in the NFL. Then Peterson gets fired, and they bring in Nick Sirianni. So there's a part of you that has to wonder how much of what's going on right now with Jalen Hurts is a byproduct of the fact that he's just in a more consistent situation. Another message comes in and says, Jalen Hurts can squat 600. He can carry the Eagles with them legs. It's an exciting time to be an Eagles fan right now. Well, that's one anonymous excited Eagles fan. By the way, Micah Marmora followed up and says, I agree with you, Josh. The big shoulders and biceps absolutely can slow down the throwing motion. Yeah. Look, it's a catch-22. On one hand, you want your quarterback to be thick and strong and athletic and powerful and be able to hold up to the hits and be able to withstand the punishment of the NFL. But on the other hand, guys like Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott and Jalen Hurts, these guys, their body structures don't rely on them to have the quick release, like a Peyton Manning or a Tom Brady, who are much leaner in the shoulder and arm category. Glenn in EHT chimes in and says the Eagles are playing good, but let's see if they can be consistent when it really matters down the road. If the NFL is going to have multiple standalone games, they should not overlap like last night. They don't overlap on Thanksgiving Day. They shouldn't overlap on Monday night either. You're doing East Coast, West Coast, and that makes both coasts happy, and me too. I didn't like it at all. Well, 2 things, Glenn. Number one, you're right. The Eagles, the real test is going to be, can they take what they did last night and what the offense did in week 1 as well? And can they parlay that? Can they carry that for weeks 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 coming out of the bye? Look, they face that Steelers team down the road. That Steelers team could give them a real test. They got to go to Arizona, and Kyler Murray looks like he is motivated to prove people wrong. The Saints have a very good defense. I think there's something to be said for the fact that as the season progresses, the Eagles will have challenges to overcome. Tom from Margate chimes in and says, Josh, I'll repeat what I said last week. Jalen Hurts will be a top 10 quarterback in this league. He is a leader, and the Jalen Jackals are downers. What do you think about the Eagles stopping Washington and Wentz? I think the Eagles go 3-0 next night. It's from Tom in Margate. I mean, look, on the surface, I think the Eagles win the game next week. I don't know if they're going to cover the 6.5, though. I think that winning a game on the road big is hard in the NFL. I think that with 2 weeks of tape now, I think a veteran coaching staff like Washington with Ron Rivera and company, they got to sit down and watch the Eagles last night, and now they get to review the all-22 tape. I think they're going to be ready. I think they're going to be ready for that game. So I don't know if it's going to be a blowout like it was last night. I think it'll be a closer game. Maybe not Detroit close, but closer. Jay in Atlantic City chimes in and says, I don't really understand what the big deal is about what round players are drafted in. When I'm setting my fantasy up with my 1 and 2 picks, probably the most important picks, except for maybe a couple guys in the middle who really carry my team. Imagine it's pretty much the same thing in the NFL, sort of. LOL. That's from Jay in Atlantic City. Look, the reason why people put such a heavy emphasis on what round these guys are drafted in is because of the fact that we have been programmed as a sports fandom, as sports fans. We have been programmed to view the draft with a level of emphasis that is probably just totally unfair. At some point, we have to reprogram how we look at sports and realize that at the end of the day, where you're drafted does not matter. It's how you play on the field. And guess what? Howie Roseman is the GM, and he has drafted most of this team as currently constructed. 9 of the 11 primary starters for the Eagles are all draft picks. So you're right. Draft round doesn't matter. Funny, Josh, with the remember the Titans, but it was a very bad impression. Look, I agree with you. I am not Will Patton. I could never be Will Patton. Will Patton is a great Hollywood actor, and I am not. It's a very, very simple equation. Matt in Delaware says about the Phillies. Josh, I'm headed up to the Phillies game tomorrow. Really hope they can get the bats going with coming home and Wheeler's back pitching this week or what. The theory is he's supposed to be back this week, but he might not go a full 6-7 innings. They're going to try to ramp him up in the postseason. Thank you, Matt in Delaware, for listening. Thank all of you for listening. Josh Hennig here on Game Night 97.3 ESPN FM, your home for Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, and NFL and college football here in South Jersey. I'll catch you guys tomorrow right here following Mike Gill on the Sports Bash. All right, I don't have a long post show to get to here on the YouTube channel. Thank you all of you for listening on the YouTube channel. At Josh Hennig on YouTube. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Before I get out of here, I just want to hit on one small point. You heard me mention earlier that Jalen Hurts is treated differently than Josh Allen. And I don't think it's because, and I know there are people out there who will think this way, and I want to clarify this for me. If you know me personally, you know I don't think this way. But for those who don't know me as well, because there are people out there watching and listening who don't know me personally, I am not suggesting that people are racial against Jalen Hurts and that they like Josh Allen more because he's white or anything like that. But there's a definitive bias against Jalen Hurts because, as Chris Franklin said earlier in the show, he was a second-round pick because he was not an elite quarterback coming out of college, because he was not projected to the NFL the way that some of these other guys are. I think that there was a time in football where people cared a lot about people's color of their skin. You know, you go back to the 80s and the 90s, that stuff was a topic. It was an issue. I don't think the issue is Jalen Hurts' skin color with the people who hate on him. I genuinely believe that as I said earlier in the show, I think there's a lot of people out there who are easily manipulated. They're very gullible, and they're easily led like sheep. And one of the problems in our society is that you have people who all they do is consume content that caters to their personal preferences, and they never listen to or see the other side of the coin. They never have any idea what's on the other side of the fence. They just assume things about what is out there, what people think. And what happens is that they like certain talk show hosts, certain TV analysts, and they hang on to their opinions like it's gospel. And the problem is that, as a wise man once told me when I was 10 years old, he says, when you idolize men, they will find a way to disappoint you. There's a lot of people out there who are being led to believe things about athletes, about politicians, about a lot of people in this world, not because it's fact or it's legitimately based in reality. They go with those opinions because it's catered to their own personal preferences, and the person says it in a way they like, or they do it in a way that they like. And I would just caution all of us. We all have to have the objectivity in life, because it's so easy to be subjective. It's so easy to fall into the trap of being emotionally led. So, my criticism of Hurts has a lot more to do with, understanding the dynamics of people's personal biases. It's not, I don't think it's a racial thing. I think there's very few people in today's world who legitimately look at Jalen Hurts and hate him because of the color of his skin. I think the problem is that Jalen Hurts, according to certain people's measurement, was never supposed to be a good quarterback because of things that actually don't matter. The guy may have the greatest throwing arm in the world, and he cannot be a competent NFL quarterback. Jeff George is the perfect example. Jeff George, when he was drafted 30 years ago now, he was one of the greatest arm talents ever come out of college from the University of Illinois. And he had a horribly rocky NFL career because he couldn't get along with people. He wasn't a good leader. Leadership intangibles matter. Character matters. everyone in the NFL has talent. So for me, I think it's important to remember that the people who hate on fill in the blank athlete or fill in the blank celebrity, you have to ask two questions. One, where are they getting their information from? And two, is that opinion or perspective hold weight if we remove that athlete's name or that person's name from the equation? All right, I'm Josh Hennig at Josh Hennig on Twitter. Thank you for watching the YouTube channel. Thank you for subscribing, hitting that like button below, and I'll catch you tomorrow here. Talk more, probably more Eagles. And of course on the radio, 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app. But thank you especially to the YouTube watchers and followers. Have a great night.